Hello, how is everybody this evening? Who's there? Is Julia there? Is Arthur there? Is Aureliano there? I bet Saoirse's there, and I bet Florencia's there. Well, that's five of my grandchildren, and I've got six altogether, haven't I? Because there's Alice now too. There is. I'm going to go and see Alice tomorrow. Well, I've had a very nice day. I got a lovely message from Julia um, saying how much she liked the story yesterday and could she have one tonight. So, well, yes, of course you can. So, I've got another story for you tonight, and it's an old favourite, I think. It's one of our favourite books of all time, one of our favourite character books, anyway. Shall we see what it is? What have we got? Ah, what have we here? Well, do you recognise the pictures? This is an Alfie story. I don't think you've had this one before, but if you have, well, it's always nice to have it again and look at the pictures. That's Alfie's house, isn't it? And it's winter because there's snow on the ground. Look, you can see the footsteps up there, can't you? One cold winter evening, Alfie and his little sister Annie Rose were all ready for bed. What's Alfie playing with? He's What's that? It's a funny boat, isn't it? I know what it is. It's a Noah's Ark, isn't it? Here all the animals that go inside. And there's his elephant called Flumbo, is it? Annie Rose is in her cot, isn't she? Mum and Dad were all ready to go out. Ooh, where they're going. Dad's tapping his watch. He looks like he's in a bit of a hurry. Mum's still putting a lipstick on. They're all dressed up. And Mrs. McNally's Maureen was in the living room. She'd come to look after Alfie and Annie Rose while Mum and Dad went to a party. Oh. Alfie and Maureen waved goodbye to them from the window. Bye bye, have a nice time. Still got his elephant under his arm, hasn't he, Alfie? Meanwhile, upstairs, Annie Rose was already in her cot. Soon she settled down and went to sleep. Alfie liked Maureen. She always read him a story when she came to babysit. Tonight, Alfie wanted the story about Noah and his ark full of animals. That's one of the stories from the Bible, isn't it? It's quite a dark story, actually. There's a huge flood, and Noah gets told to build an ark, which he does, and saves all the animals, two of each. The rest get drowned. It's not very nice, really. Hmm. I don't think it's true. I think it's a bit of a, I think it's a bit of a fable to illustrate some event that maybe happened a long, long time ago. Anyway, Alfie liked to hear the story of Noah's Ark, how the rain came down, drip, 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 and then splash, 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 until everywhere was flooded. The whole world was covered with water. When Maureen had finished the story, it was time for Alfie to go to bed. She came upstairs with him to tuck him up. They had to be very quiet and talk whispers, so they didn't wake Annie Rose up. Maureen gave Alfie a good-night hug and went off downstairs, leaving the door a little bit open. Alfie didn't feel sleepy. He lay in bed looking at the patch of light on the ceiling. For a long time, all was quiet, and then he heard a funny noise out on the landing. Oh, what do you reckon to Alfie's pictures? I think you could draw better pictures than that. I bet you could. Well, Alfie had heard a funny noise on the landing. Alfie sat up. The noise was just outside his door. It was going drip, drip, drip. Ooh, do you think it's Noah's Ark? Drip, drip, drip. Soon it got quicker. Drip, 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 drip. And it was getting louder too. Alfie got out of bed and peeped around the door. There was a puddle on the floor. He looked up. Water was splashing into the puddle from the ceiling. Drip, 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 drip. It was raining inside the house. Oh no! What's happened? Alfie went downstairs. Maureen was doing her homework in front of the television. It's not a very good idea, is it? You're never going to get your homework done properly like that. Anyway, she was. It's raining on the landing, Alfie told her. Oh. Alfie and Maureen went back upstairs. The puddle was getting bigger. The drip, 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 drip turned into a splash, 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 splash. Looks like a burst pipe, said Maureen. A plumber was one of the things that she wanted to be when she left school. You know what a plumber does? He fixes pipes and things like that. Water in the house, toilets, cisterns, heating. My dad was a plumber. Your great-granddad, yes, he was a plumber all his life. Better get a bucket, said Maureen. So Alfie showed her where the bucket was kept, in the kitchen cupboard with the brushes and the brooms. By now, the water was dripping down in another place. Alfie found two of Mum's big mixing bowls to put them underneath the drips. Maureen got on the telephone to her mum. The McNallys lived just across the street. Well, you know where they live, don't you? You've seen other stories. And Mrs. McNally was there in a moment. Oh dear, she said. It's ruining your mother's floor. Fetch some floor cloths, Maureen. Just then, Annie Rose woke up and began to cry. Shh, shh, there, said Mrs. McNally, bending over her cot. But Annie Rose only looked at her and cried louder. Oh no, what a night this is turning out to be. Mrs. McNally ran back out to the landing. She and Maureen tried to mop up the water, but now the drips were coming from lots of different places. Splash, splash, splash. We ought to turn the water off from the main, said Maureen. But I don't know how you do it. I think I'd better fetch Dad. He'll probably know. What's Alfie doing? He's got his duck from the bath, a little boat. He's going to sail the boat. Well, might have a bit of fun, I suppose. While Maureen was gone, Mrs. McNally mopped and mopped and mopped. She emptied brimming bowls, and in between mopping and emptying, she ran to try to comfort Annie Rose, but Annie Rose went on crying and crying, and the drips on the landing were coming faster and faster. Now there were a lot of puddles on the floor. Alfie paddled in them for a while. It was great fun, but the water was very cold. He thought that soon perhaps the whole street would be covered in water, and they'd all have to float away in a boat, like Noah's Ark. Soon Maureen came running upstairs with Mr. McNally close behind her. He was still wearing his slippers. "What's all this then?" said Mr. McNally, looking at all the water pouring down. He put his head around the bathroom door. He and Annie Rose were old friends. "Dear, dear, what's all this?" he said in a very kind voice. Then he went downstairs and found a large sort of tap under the stairs and turned it off, just like that. "So that's where it was," said Maureen. She'd known she could have done that, couldn't she? Then the water stopped pouring down through the ceiling. Splash, splash, splash it had been going, but soon it became a drip, 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 and then a drip, 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 and then it stopped altogether. Hooray! "Oh, thank goodness for that," said Mrs. McNally. "I'll know how to do it next time," said Maureen. But Annie Rose was still crying. Alfie went into the bedroom to see if he could cheer her up. Tears were rolling down her cheeks and soaking into her blankets. "Don't cry, Annie Rose," said Alfie, and he put his hand through the bars of her cot and patted her very gently, as he'd seen Mum do sometimes. Annie Rose still wore nappies at night. "Annie Rose is wet," Alfie told everybody, "and her bed's wet too. I expect that's why she's crying." "Why, so she is, poor little mite," said Mrs. McNally. Mrs. McNally changed Annie Rose, and when she was all dry and comfortable again, Mrs. McNally put her on the living room sofa with Alfie and tucked a quilt around them. Then she gave them both a biscuit. Mm. Well, this is turning into a bit of an exciting night for Alfie and Annie Rose, isn't it? Annie Rose was quite cheerful now. She got very friendly with Mr. McNally, and he let her play a game with him, taking off his glasses and putting them on again. Then she sucked her thumb and leaned up against Alfie, and Alfie leaned up against her. When Mum and Dad came home, they were both fast asleep. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Next morning, Mum told Alfie not to turn on the taps until the plumber had been to mend the burst pipe. Alfie didn't mind not having a wash. He'd had enough water the evening before, to last for a long, long time. And he's got his Noah's Ark there, hasn't he? Well, I think that would be absolutely terrible, wouldn't it? If your house was running with water like that, gosh, wouldn't you be panicking? I would be. I would. But I know where the tap is in our house in Thorney. I know where the tap is to turn the water off. So, yeah, so that's important. I wonder if your dad knows, Arthur. Do you know where to turn the water off? I do, so I've been to your house. And what about Quito or Ambato? Does Mummy or Daddy know Aureliano or Julia, Florencia? Do they know? Well, my advice would be find out where your stop tap is, and then in an emergency you can get that water turned off really quick. You don't have to send for Mr. McNally. You can do it yourselves. Make a real mess, wouldn't it, if there was water like that? Anyway, it's only a story. I hope you enjoyed it. I love an Alfie book myself. Let me know what you think. If there's any feedback, I'd love to see it. Might be nice to have a picture. Maybe somebody do me a picture of what would you do me a picture of? A Noah's Ark, maybe, or some water. Where could we put some water? We could have a waterfall or a pond or something like that with somebody splashing in it. That would be nice. Anyway, I'll leave it to you. You can decide if you want to do a picture, and if you do, what it's of. That's fine. Well, it's time for bed now. Nighty night night. Way Way Grandy loves you very much, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Night night.